My name is Ashley Hinshaw. I'm 24 years old, and last year I did something nobody in my family had ever done. I graduated college. 4 years of grinding, working 2 campus jobs, surviving on cheap instant meals, and caffeine, and somehow managing to pull myself across the finish line. I'm not brilliant in the way people romanticize. I'm not the loud girl in the room or the one whose confidence fills up every corner. I'm the opposite, quiet, methodical, the person who gets things done without making noise about it. That's always been my default. But before you think this is going to be one of those heartwarming stories, girl, overcomes adversity. Family cheers her on from the stands, proud tears, bouquet of flowers stop. This isn't that story. It isn't even close. Because when I crossed that stage, when they called my name, and I turned toward the crowd with a smile I'd rehearsed in the mirror, my parents weren't there. Not in the stands, not stuck in the parking lot, not running late. They simply weren't there to understand why I have to take you back. I come from a family that looks picture perfect on the outside holiday cards, matching sweaters, posed smiles. But beneath that glossy layer, there's a gravitational pull in our household, and all of it orbits around my older sister Taylor. She's 2 years older, eternally dramatic, eternally adored, and eternally the center of the universe, whether she deserves to be or not. If Taylor gets a haircut, there's a Facebook album. If she buys new shoes, everyone hears about it. If she cries, the world must stop spinning until she's soothed. And my parents, especially my mother, feed it. I don't think I've ever heard her tell Taylor no. Ever. Not when Taylor demanded things, not when she threw tantrums well into adulthood, not when she turned every event into her own personal spotlight. Meanwhile, I was the easy kid growing up, the one who didn't cause trouble, didn't compete, didn't force anyone to pay attention to me. I'd hoped that by being good, by being quiet, by doing everything right, eventually they'd notice me too. Spoiler, they didn't. Over the years, Taylor cycled through obsessions like someone trying on personalities. There was her travel vlogger phase, 3 months and 4 poorly edited YouTube videos. The yogurt craze. The vegan cleanse era when family dinners turned into interrogations. The 5-day engagement to a man she met at Coachella. My parents were already Pinterest planning the wedding before that collapsed. But the one that stuck, the one that truly defined our family dynamic, was her dog, a tiny Maltese named Sir Fluffington. Yes, that's the full name, and she insisted we all use it. This dog has outfits, seasonal ones, a wardrobe better curated than mine. He has his own Instagram account. He gets birthday parties. She once made me redo a caption because I referred to him as the dog instead of Sir Fluffington. I wish I were exaggerating. I'm not. So graduation. I had been reminding my parents for months. The date, the time, driving directions, parking passes, the building, what row I'd be in. I didn't ask for gifts or a big celebration. I just wanted them to be there. I wanted one photo, just one of me with them in my cap and gown. The morning of the ceremony, I kept checking my phone. Nothing. No on our way, no traffic is bad, nothing. My stomach twisted harder each time the screen lit up, only to show spam notifications. Finally, I called my mom around 9. Hey, I said, trying to sound casual. Are you guys close? There was a pause, a long one. Then my mom's voice came through way too light, like she was talking about the weather. Oh, honey, about that. We're not going to make it. For a second, I thought she was joking. Then she kept talking. Taylor booked a grooming appointment for Sir Fluffington. She scheduled it weeks ago. You know how hard it is to get in with that groomer. And she didn't want to cancel last minute. You understand. Are you serious? I asked. I could feel heat rising up my neck. Well, he gets anxious when his routine changes, she continued. Taylor gets stressed. We just didn't want to disappoint her. But disappointing me, that was apparently no issue at all. You didn't want to disappoint Taylor, I repeated slowly. But skipping my college graduation, that's fine. Oh, don't be dramatic, she said. We'll watch the recording. Just send us the link later. I stood there in my dorm room gown, hanging off my shoulders, staring at the phone like it was mocking me. That was the moment, the exact moment something inside me fractured. Not shattered, just cracked. A polite, clean break. I walked across that stage with a practiced smile. I posed for pictures with classmates whose parents brought flowers and balloons. I watched mothers cry and fathers beam and siblings cheer loud enough to echo in the hall, and I felt like a ghost drifting through someone else's celebration. I went home afterward and sat alone in my tiny apartment, still wearing my gown. No texts, no calls, no congratulations, silence. an entire milestone of my life witnessed by no one. And I didn't say anything. Not that day, not that week, not that month. I waited, hoping they'd realize what they'd done, hoping maybe, just maybe, someone would apologize. They didn't, so I pulled away. Stopped calling, stopped visiting. No Thanksgiving, no Christmas, no guilt-tripped weekend brunches. I erased myself from their convenience-based version of family, and for the first time in my life, the quiet felt peaceful. A year passed. I focused on work, moved into a better apartment, started dating someone, Evan, who actually saw me, listened to me, treated me like I mattered. And then almost exactly a year after my graduation, an email arrived. Subject: exciting news. My stomach tightened before I even opened it. And when I did, wedding registry banners, pastel colors, and a short message from my mom. Hi, Ashley. Hope you're doing well. Taylor is getting married next month. We'd love for you to be part of the celebration. We know it's short notice, but we were wondering if you'd be willing to help with the venue cost. It's about $60,000, and we're a little short. Taylor thought it would mean a lot coming from you. I stared at the email, not shocked, just numb. This was so them. So Taylor. So predictable. And that was the moment a different kind of crack formed. Not the kind that breaks you. The kind that lets something new grow through. I typed one word back. Sure. No punctuation, no warmth. If they wanted to play games, fine. But I wasn't going to be the quiet daughter anymore. The moment I hit send on that single word reply, sure, I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no regret. Just a cold, clean stillness inside me, the kind you get right before a storm hits. I knew the reply would light a fuse I had no intention of extinguishing. Let them think I was the same old Ashley, the quiet daughter, who always bent, always yielded, always absorbed the blow so someone else didn't have to. Not this time. It didn't take long for the responses to roll in. My mom texted first. Mom. Oh, sweetheart. Thank you so much. This means the world to Taylor. She was so touched when I told her you said yes. 5 minutes later. Mom. This wedding is going to be perfect. We're so glad we can count on you. Count on me. Right. Not because they valued me, but because they assumed I was finally coming back into orbit around Taylor. The gravitational pull of the golden child, they thought it was irresistible. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. After a year of silence, I had learned something important. When you stop talking, people start revealing exactly who they are. For a few days, everything went quiet again. Strangely quiet. Like they were holding their collective breath, waiting for the money to magically appear. Waiting for me to step back into the role they'd assigned me since childhood. The responsible one, the reliable one, the invisible one. And then the follow-up email arrived. This time from my dad. Subject: quick update. Ashley. Since you kindly agreed to help with the venue, Taylor's fiancé Mason will be forwarding you the invoice soon. Please pay it by the 14th so we can lock everything in with the planner. No, thank you. No, we appreciate you. Just logistics. Just an expectation. As if I were an ATM they hadn't used in a while and were now testing again to make sure it still worked. I set my phone down slowly, almost delicately, like it might explode if I gripped it too tightly. A few hours later, my screen lit up with a message from an unknown number. Unknown Mason. Hey, this is Mason. Thanks for covering this. My mom says the views at the venue are insane. The invoice attached at the bottom showed a total of $61,783.47 due in 2 weeks. I actually laughed sharp, disbelieving. The kind of laugh that comes from a place so deep inside you, it barely sounds human. Not out of humor, but out of an emotion too big to name. I went for a walk that night. Cold air, quiet streets, a chance to let my thoughts settle like snowflakes on concrete. When I got home, Evan was waiting for me on the couch. He looked concerned, but he didn't push. You okay? He asked. I nodded. Yeah, just old family stuff. He didn't pry. That's one of the things I love about him. He gives me space without making me feel like I'm drifting. He trusts that when I'm ready, I'll talk. Growing up in my family space was never something I had. So now, when I get it, it feels like a luxury. Still, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, replaying old memories, each one sliding into the next like a film reel I couldn't stop. Every birthday that turned into Taylor's pity party. Every school event overshadowed by Taylor's emotional crisis. Every small achievement of mine brushed aside because Taylor stubbed her toe or broke a nail or thought she might start a travel vlog. I remembered the morning of my high school graduation. Taylor had a meltdown because her prom dress didn't fit right. My mom spent the entire ceremony texting her. When I walked across the stage, no one in my family clapped. Later that night, they took Taylor out for emergency shopping. I ate leftovers by myself and pretended it didn't hurt. Then came the day I got accepted into my dream internship. I'd emailed my mom the acceptance letter. Hours later, Taylor announced out of nowhere that she might write a children's book. Suddenly, that was the big family excitement. But the worst memory, the one that still ached like a bruise, was my college graduation. A day I earned. A day I worked for. A day they skipped. Because Taylor's dog needed a haircut. And now they wanted me to bankroll her dream wedding. $60,000 more than I made in a year. Something in me hardened. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to send angry paragraphs. I wasn't going to explain my feelings like I had every other time. This time, I was going to let them reveal themselves. Let them show the world who they really were. I wasn't going to start a war. I was going to finish one. The next morning, with a coffee in hand, I opened my laptop and typed into the venue's search bar. A massive estate. Waterfalls. Glass ceiling reception hall. The kind of place where brides take photos that go viral because they look like a fairy tale. I found the FAQs, read every line, then called pretending to be a bride inquiring about dates. The planner, Alyssa, was pleasant, efficient, and very clear. Full payment was required to secure the date, no exceptions. Late payments triggered an automatic cancellation and a 25% penalty. Good to know. I saved the details, sat back, let the information settle heavy and quiet. Meanwhile, the love bombing resumed. Mom left me a voice message in her syrupy, sweet voice, the one she only used when she wanted something. We're so proud of you, Ashley. We always knew you'd step up for the family. Taylor has always looked up to you, you know, even if she doesn't show it. I actually coughed out a laugh. Taylor had never looked up to me a day in her life. But then Mom said something that stuck in my head. We knew we could count on you to finally step up. Finally step up. As if the sacrifices I made growing up meant nothing. As if my silence had been interpreted as obedience rather than exhaustion. As if I owed them something for their neglect. That was when the whispers inside me, the ones that had begged for acknowledgement, for fairness, for love, fell silent. I wasn't their background character anymore. A few days later, the doorbell rang. Evan and I had just come back from the grocery store. I assumed it was a neighbor or a delivery. I opened the door and froze. Taylor stood there, hair curled, sunglasses perched on her head, a latte in one hand, a designer dog carrier in the other with Sir Fluffington poking his tiny head out like royalty. She breezed past me without waiting for an invitation. Hey, sis, she said, dropping her Gucci bag on my floor like she owned the place. Let's talk numbers. I stared at her, trying to decide whether to laugh or scream. You flew across the country to talk about a wire transfer, I asked. She shrugged. Well, I had a flight voucher expiring. And this is important. Then she smiled. That sugar-sweet, razor-sharp smile she uses when she's about to cut someone and pretend she's hugging them. And I realized this wasn't just about money. This was about control. This was about power. And she thought she still had it. But she was wrong. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of her anymore. Taylor stormed out of my apartment like a gust of designer-perfumed wind, her heels clicking dramatically down the hallway, Sir Fluffington jostling in his carrier like a tiny furry witness. The door slammed so hard the picture frame on the wall rattled. For a long moment, I just stood there staring at the closed door. Not angry, not shocked, just hollow. A blank, exhausted kind of quiet. Evan stepped out of the kitchen, holding 2 mugs of coffee confusion written across his face. She didn't stay long. I huffed out a breath that wasn't quite a laugh. No, she got what she wanted, a chance to remind me that everything is always about her. He gently set the mugs on the table and walked toward me. You okay? I didn't know. My insides felt scrambled like someone had opened a drawer and shaken everything inside. I nodded anyway. Yeah, I think so. But I didn't. Not really. That night, after Evan fell asleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The darkness felt thick, pressing against me like a heavy blanket. Taylor's words replayed in my head on a cruel loop. After everything we've done for you, you should want to contribute. You're not even married. What do you need savings for? Every sentence was a needle, threading itself into old wounds. I tried to push the thoughts away, but they spread like ink in water, bleeding into memories I thought I'd buried. The time I scored the highest math grade in my entire school, and my parents barely looked up from comforting Taylor, because her crush didn't text her back. The time I won a scholarship and my mom said, Well, at least that means we can spend more on Taylor's violin lessons. The time I got the lead in a school play and they made me step aside last minute because Taylor had a panic attack about not getting enough weekend attention. Every step forward I made alone, and every time I faltered, I fell alone. Taylor had always been the sun in our household. I'd been the shadow she never bothered to see. At 3 a.m., I got out of bed quietly so I wouldn't wake Evan. I padded through our apartment and opened a small shoebox I kept tucked away in the back of the closet. I hadn't looked inside in years. Inside were pieces of a life no one but me had cared about. Old report cards, a crumpled ribbon from a science fair, the acceptance letter to my university photos from moments no one else showed up for. I touched each item carefully, like I was handling remnants of a forgotten child. My forgotten child self. I pulled out a photo me at 14, holding a regional math competition trophy. My smile in the picture was bright, proud, unfiltered. The girl in that photo was hopeful, hungry to be seen. She didn't yet know that recognition in our family wasn't earned. It was inherited by birth order and personality. I remembered that day vividly. My dad had missed the ceremony because Taylor had a violin recital across town. My mom left halfway through my competition because Taylor felt overwhelmed. When I won, I took the bus home alone, sat on the porch, and waited 2 hours for someone to ask how it went. No one did. Sitting on the floor of my bedroom, holding that picture, something inside me cracked. Not the fragile kind of cracking that breaks you, but the kind that lets pressure escape. A dam releasing after years of holding back a flood. And I cried. Not the silent, polite tears I'd learned to swallow in bathrooms growing up. Real tears. Ugly ones. Chest-heaving, face-burning, breath-shaking sobs. The kind that aren't about one moment, but about every moment, layered on top of the next, until the weight becomes unbearable. I don't know how long I cried, but at some point I felt Evan kneel beside me, his hand warm on my back. He didn't ask what was wrong. He didn't tell me to stop. He didn't try to fix it. He just held me quietly the way no one ever had. When the sobbing finally slowed, he kissed the side of my head gently. "You don't have to carry this alone," he whispered. I closed my eyes. Maybe he was right. Maybe it was time to stop burying the hurt, to stop pretending the past hadn't shaped me. The next morning, I called in sick to work, not because I wanted a day off, but because I needed a day to begin again differently. I grabbed a clean notebook and wrote down 3 questions, each one feeling like it weighed 100 pounds. What do I want my life to look like 5 years from now? What is holding me back? Who am I still desperately trying to impress, and why? The last question hit me like a fist to the chest. I'd spent years trying to earn something my family was never going to give me. Validation, respect, equal attention, love without conditions. I sat with the notebook in my lap, staring at my messy handwriting, and for the first time in a long while, I had clarity. I was done chasing people who let me starve emotionally. I picked up my phone and texted someone I hadn't spoken to in 2 years. Nadia, an old friend from college who understood family dysfunction better than anyone I knew. "Coffee sometime this week, I'd love to catch up," she replied within minutes. "Absolutely, name the day." That was the first small step. Over the next few weeks, I started taking more of them. At work, I volunteered for leadership tasks I'd always been too timid to raise my hand for. My boss noticed. My coworkers noticed. There were even whispers of a promotion coming my way in the fall. At home, I began taking care of myself with the same energy I used to pour into everyone else. Morning walks, cooking real meals, documentaries instead of doom scrolling, journaling before bed. Evan said I was smiling more. I didn't believe him at first, but then one morning, I caught my reflection in the microwave door and realized he was right. I looked lighter, freer, like someone unlearning how to be invisible. One afternoon, while scrolling through LinkedIn, I noticed a familiar name, Mason Taylor's fiancé. He'd posted one of those cringy, self-congratulatory updates about vision leadership and new horizons. But what caught my attention wasn't the post, it was the company he'd tagged. I knew it. I'd interviewed there a year ago. And I knew the hiring manager. On impulse, I sent the manager a quick, friendly message. "Hey, just saw you hired Mason. Funny coincidence, my sister's fiancé. How's he settling in?" 2 days later, she replied, "Honestly, not great. Deliverables are late, communication is messy, kind of a short-term situation unless things improve." I exhaled slowly. I didn't want Mason to fail. But for once, Taylor's perfect world had a crack in it, and I hadn't even touched it. As the days ticked toward the wedding's payment deadline, a strange calm settled over me. Not vindictive, not raging. Just certain. The kind of certainty that comes when you finally stop being afraid of losing people who never held on to you in the first place. And then right when things were finally settling into this new rhythm, I got an email. Subject urgent wedding guest list update. And I just knew that everything was about to shift again. The subject line, urgent wedding guest list update, looked harmless, almost routine. But by now, I knew my family well enough to understand what urgent really meant. It was never about emergencies. It was never about clarity. Urgent in my family was code for, we made a mess and expect you to fix it. My finger hovered over the delete key for a full 5 seconds before curiosity got the better of me. I opened the email. Hi, Ashley. We noticed you haven't RSVP'd yet. Taylor is really hoping you'll attend the wedding. She even asked the planner to save you a seat at the family head table. We'd love to include Evan too, of course. We want this to be a healing moment for the family. Also, gentle reminder, the venue balance is due by the 14th. That's this Friday. Taylor is getting nervous because the planner reached out to confirm payment, and we told her you'd be taking care of it. Could you please send us the payment confirmation once the transfer is complete? P.S. Taylor says Sir Fluffington wants to walk down the aisle with the flower girl. She's hoping you'll film it. Love, Mom. The audacity. Not only had they assumed I'd bankroll a $60,000 venue they'd told the planner I was paying, without asking, without confirming, without considering whether it was appropriate or remotely fair. My jaw tightened. Something cold slithered through my chest. Not anger exactly, but a grim sense of inevitability. A line had been crossed, and not even subtly. They had used my name, my identity, my assumed loyalty, to make a financial promise I had never made. I reread the email twice. Then I took a breath, opened my laptop, and navigated back to the venue's website. The facts were clear, brutally clear. Full payment required to secure the date. No exceptions. Late payment triggers automatic cancellation of the booking. The venue does not contact clients before releasing the date. 3 weeks until the wedding. 5 days until the deadline. My family had gambled the entire event on the assumption that I would cave like always. Not this time. I opened a blank document, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat, and began writing. Not emotionally, not impulsively, strategically, precisely. Like someone finally learning the rules of a game she had been losing her entire life. I drafted a formal email to the venue planner. Hi, Alyssa. I hope you're well. I wanted to clarify something regarding a wedding reservation under the names Taylor last name and Mason last name. It has come to my attention that my name may have been used to indicate financial responsibility for the venue payment. I want to be absolutely clear that I, Ashley Hinshaw, have not agreed to cover any portion of this booking and have made no payments toward it. If my name was provided, it was done without my authorization. Please confirm that no account or contract lists me as a payer. I appreciate your help in clearing any confusion. Best Ashley Hinshaw. I reread it, adjusted 2 phrases, softened 1 line, strengthened another. I wanted to sound calm, professional, factual, not vindictive. I wanted a record. Alyssa replied within the hour. Hi, Ashley. Thank you for reaching out. You are not listed as a payer on any official documents. We have added a note to the account stating that no third-party payments should be accepted unless authorized in writing by the contract holders. Please let me know if you need anything else. Alyssa. Perfect. 1 domino placed. Next, I texted Nadia. Hey, remember that venue your cousin booked then canceled last year? I need to ask her something. Within 20 minutes, Nadia called me back with her cousin on speaker. Her cousin, bless her empathetic heart, had no idea who I was, but had zero problem spilling every detail about the venue's strict policies. Oh yeah, they don't play, she said. If you don't pay by the deadline, they cancel without warning. Like, instantly. I called at 9:05, the morning after my deadline, and they'd already released my date. So they really don't notify people before canceling. Nope, it's in the contract. Brutal but efficient. Exactly what I needed to hear. When the call ended, I sat back in my chair and exhaled slowly. Not because I felt triumphant, but because for the first time in a long time, I felt clarity, control, a sense that maybe after years of being dismissed, discounted, and sidelined, I finally had something my family could never take from me. A boundary, and the power to enforce it. 2 days before the payment deadline, the barrage began. Mom texted, "Sweetheart, the planner says she hasn't received payment. Just checking in. Everything okay?" 5 minutes later, Taylor is getting anxious. Please don't forget. 4 hours later. Ashley, can you call us? This is getting stressful. I didn't respond. The next day, Dad emailed. Ashley, this isn't funny. The venue still hasn't been paid. If you change your mind, just tell us. This is unacceptable. Unacceptable. I sat on the couch staring at that word. After everything they'd done, I was unacceptable. Evan glanced over from the kitchen. You okay? I showed him the email. He read it once, then again. His jaw clenched. You don't owe them anything, he said quietly. And for the first time in my life, hearing those words didn't make me defensive or ashamed. They felt true. On the morning of the payment deadline, my phone lit up with call after call. I let everyone go to voicemail. Then the text began. Mom Alyssa says payment hasn't come through. What's going on? Please respond. Dad. We are about to lose the venue. Fix this. Fix this. Of course, my assigned childhood role. The fixer. The stabilizer. The one who patches holes in a ship she didn't poke through. Not anymore. At 4:17 p.m., 15 minutes before the deadline, Taylor texted, WTF, Ashley. Are you seriously ghosting the planner? Are you trying to ruin my wedding? I watched the message appear, watched the 3 dots appear, disappear, appear again. Then another message popped up. You are unbelievable. I hope you feel good about this. I didn't reply. By 5 p.m., the deadline was gone. By 5:07, the venue was gone too. By 5:30, the frantic messages had stopped completely. Silence. Cold. Absolute. Clean. I didn't celebrate. I didn't smile. I didn't feel victorious. What I felt was lighter, like a heavy coat I'd worn my entire life had finally slipped off my shoulders. I stood up from the couch and stretched. Evan looked at me with that soft, knowing expression he wore whenever I reached a milestone in this strange emotional transformation. Dinner, I asked. He grinned. You look different. Better, I asked. Lighter. I nodded. Because what Taylor, my parents, and the entire gravitational pull of my family didn't know was this. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't cruelty. This was the price of thinking I would always bend. And for the first time, I wasn't bending. I was breaking free. Friday came and went with no payment to the venue. And although I didn't see the moment it happened, I knew exactly when the booking vanished, sometime between 4 and 5 p.m., when my phone went eerily silent. The panic text from earlier in the day had stopped, replaced by an expectant hush. It was the quiet before an earthquake. The real aftershock hit on Monday morning. Later, I pieced the story together through the breadcrumbs my family left. Panicked. Texts. Half-truths. Scrambling voicemails. Taylor must have called the planner first thing that morning, expecting a minor inconvenience. Maybe a small fee. A gentle reminder. Instead, she got the truth. Her dream waterfall venue gone. Released. Rebooked by someone on the wait list within minutes. No grace period. No exceptions. At 11:04 a.m., my phone buzzed. Mom, Ashley, this is very bad. The venue canceled. We need to talk now. Please call. A minute later, Dad, do you have any idea what you've done? You embarrassed this family. You've gone too far. Too far. After a lifetime of being forgotten, ignored, minimized, and dismissed, this was too far. My phone buzzed again. Mom, we're looking into backup venues, but everything is booked or completely hideous. This is a disaster. You said, sure, Ashley. You can't back out of a promise like that. A promise they forced onto me without my consent. Then came the one I had been expecting but not quite ready for. Taylor, you ruined my life. I hope you're happy. You betrayed your own sister for what revenge? I should have known you'd do something like this. You've always been jealous. Jealous, that word was almost funny. I had spent my entire childhood being invisible, and now they painted me as some envious villain whose motive was spite. Taylor had always lived under a spotlight she never earned, but I had never wanted the spotlight. All I'd ever wanted was fairness, space, a childhood where someone asked me how my day was. I didn't reply to any of them, not because I wanted to punish them, but because there was nothing left to say. Over the next week, their world slowly crumbled, and I watched from a distance quietly, calmly, like someone observing a storm from behind reinforced glass. The first problem they encountered, everything decent, was already booked. This was a June wedding, peak season. Venues were full months in advance. The second problem, the replacement options were humiliating for someone with Taylor's level of theatrical perfectionism. A windowless conference hall near the airport, a barn with questionable plumbing, a church basement with mustard yellow carpet, a strip mall event center with fake chandeliers. None of them matched her Pinterest board, her dreamy, ethereal fairy tale wedding that she'd curated online for years. The very wedding she'd convinced herself she deserved. Then finally, after 7 days of frantic calls and last-minute begging, she settled for the best of the worst, a golf course clubhouse, 15 minutes outside town. The carpet was dated, the wallpaper half peeled, and the banquet chairs had floral cushions that looked older than Sir Fluffington. No waterfalls, no glass ceilings, no sprawling garden, just the faint smell of chlorine from the adjacent pool and a lingering sense of disappointment. Within hours, Taylor was blasting out calls to guests. My aunt texted me privately, "Your mother sounds exhausted." They're uninviting people left and right. Something about limited space and intimate vibes. It's a mess. Intimate vibes. Translation, we assumed Ashley would pay, and now we can't afford the original guest list. They tried to spin the narrative online too. Mom posted on Facebook, "Some people take joy in tearing down what others build, but we rise anyway. Family is what matters." One of Taylor's old college friends commented, "Wait, didn't you guys just cancel that waterfall venue? What happened?" No reply. I didn't need to insert myself. The cracks were already widening. Then came another unexpected ripple. Mason, my soon-to-be brother-in-law, who hadn't spoken to me directly since sending the original invoice, called. I watched his name light up my phone. Let it ring. Let it go to voicemail. His voice was strained, the polished confidence gone. "Ashley, look, I don't know what's happening between you and your family, but Taylor is losing it. She's blaming everyone, me the planner, her maid of honor. I didn't even know you weren't paying for the venue until we got the email from Alyssa." He sighed. "I'm not asking for anything. I don't know what to do. Maybe talk to her before this wedding turns into a war zone." A war zone? He had no idea. He stepped into a battlefield he thought was a garden. I didn't call him back. Because whatever he was wrestling with wasn't mine to fix. He had chosen to believe Taylor's version of things, chosen to stand beside her while she manipulated, dramatized, and fabricated. Now he was seeing the truth for the first time. Some lessons can't be taught. They have to be lived. 3 days before the wedding, my mother sent me an email. No subject line, no greeting. Just a block of text that felt like the emotional equivalent of a cold slap. "I don't recognize the woman you've become. You used to be kind. You used to be thoughtful. Family first. You've let resentment poison you. I hope one day you understand what you've done to your sister. You've broken our family." I read it twice. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of what they'd done, no reflection, no ownership. Just blame, because blaming me was easier than facing the reality that they'd lost control of someone they'd kept small for years. I deleted the message. They no longer had a past to rewrite my story. When the wedding weekend arrived, I didn't attend. I didn't send flowers. I didn't send an explanation. Evan and I packed a small bag, drove to the coast, and spent 2 days doing absolutely nothing. Breakfast on the hotel balcony, long walks where no one talked about guilt or obligations, seafood dinners, salted air, actual peace. I didn't check my phone. I didn't need to. And when the wedding photos eventually surfaced online, the truth was impossible to ignore. The lighting terrible, the venue cramped, the decor inconsistent at best, tragic at worst. Sir Fluffington barked through the vows and refused to wear his flower crown. Half the guests clearly left early. Not a single wide shot of the venue survived. Taylor only posted tight close-ups, filtering everything to pastel oblivion, adding captions like, "In the end, only real love matters. The ones who show up are the ones who count. The ones who count." That phrasing made something inside me settle, because for the first time I finally counted. Not to them. To myself. It took my family 2 full weeks after the wedding to reach out again. 2 weeks of silence so loud it was almost peaceful. No guilt, no demands, no expectations. Just the sound of my own life finally free from the constant tug of their gravity. Then one afternoon, I checked the mailbox on my way up to the apartment and found an envelope with my father's handwriting. No return address, no embellishments, just my name. I stared at it for a long moment before going inside. Evan glanced up from the stove as I walked in. "Everything okay?" I held up the envelope like it was radioactive. From my dad. He nodded gently. "Open it when you're ready." I set it on the table and didn't touch it for the rest of the night. It wasn't fear. It wasn't anger. It was something in between, an old ache I wasn't sure I wanted to revisit. For the last few weeks, I had been learning what it felt like to live without the constant background noise of their expectations. I wasn't sure I wanted to invite it back in. The next morning, while Evan slept and the apartment was still quiet, I finally opened it. The letter was short. Ashley, I don't agree with how everything went down. I'm not happy about the wedding mess, and I won't pretend I am. But I won't pretend I don't see your point either. Maybe we failed you somewhere along the way. Maybe we didn't listen enough. Maybe we made mistakes I didn't notice until now. I don't know how to fix it, but I'm here if you ever want to talk. Dad. That was it. No apology, just maybe. But maybe was more than I had ever gotten from him. I folded the letter carefully, not because it meant forgiveness, and not because I planned to reply right away, but because something about it felt like a turning point, a small crack in a long-held wall. And yet, I didn't need it. Not the letter, not the permission, not the acknowledgement. For the first time in my entire life, I didn't feel tethered to their approval. I wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. In the weeks after the wedding, something inside me shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, like frost melting after a long winter. Extended family members I hadn't heard from in years started reaching out, not with accusations, but with recognition. An aunt on my mom's side sent a private message. Just wanted to say, I admire how you handled things. I always noticed how you were treated. You deserved better. A cousin wrote, your parents have always catered to Taylor. It wasn't fair. I'm glad you finally stood up for yourself. These messages didn't erase the pain, but they validated something I'd spent years questioning. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't overreacting. I wasn't the problem. For most of my life, I felt like a ghost wandering through my own family, fading into the background while Taylor's light swallowed the room. But ghosts don't leave footprints. They don't take up space. And I was learning how to take up space. At work, I threw myself into the leadership project I'd volunteered for. My boss noticed. My colleagues noticed. I started feeling capable, confident, like someone who had stopped shrinking and was finally learning to stand up straight. Rumors of a fall promotion weren't rumors anymore. My boss pulled me aside one afternoon and said, you're becoming one of our strongest people. Keep it up. Those words meant more than they should have. Not because I needed praise, but because it came from someone who saw the work, not the noise around it. Someone who saw me. At home, Evan remained my anchor. We cooked together more often. We went on long evening walks. We talked about the future, not in some grandiose, romanticized way, but in a real grounded one. For the first time, the idea of a future didn't scare me. It felt possible. It felt like something I could build with someone who actually respected me, respected my story, respected my heart. One night while we were washing dishes, Evan bumped my shoulder lightly. You know, he said you've changed a lot these past few months. I paused. Is that a good thing? He smiled. It's the best thing. You're becoming yourself. I didn't realize I was holding back tears until I blinked them away. Thank you, I whispered. He didn't ask what for. He knew. Meanwhile, the fallout from the wedding continued. Taylor's curated fantasy crumbled publicly. The photos she posted were tightly cropped close-ups of her dress, her bouquet, her smile. No venue shots. No wide angles. No proud parents at her side. One of her college friends posted a picture on her own feed, a wide shot, unfiltered. The fluorescent lighting washed everyone out. The chairs looked off balance. Sir Fluffington was mid-bark, captured in a freeze frame of chaos. The comments section was brutal. Wait, this was the famous venue you bragged about. Why does this look like my middle school cafeteria? Where's the waterfall? Taylor limited comments within the hour. She never tagged me in anything. Never mentioned me. Never acknowledged my absence. But in every heavily filtered photo, every carefully worded caption about real love and true family, there was a glaring hole where I used to stand. A hole she could no longer fill with excuses. I spent a long time reflecting on the word Dad had used in his letter maybe. Maybe they'd failed me. Maybe they hadn't listened. Maybe they'd finally noticed the cost of always choosing one daughter over the other. But I learned something else in that quiet aftermath. I didn't need their maybes anymore. I didn't need closure from them to heal myself. I didn't need validation to live well. What I needed, what I had finally chosen, was me. Real revenge isn't fire. It isn't screaming. It isn't the explosive confrontations my family seemed to expect. Real revenge is silence. It's walking away. It's refusing to let people who never valued you dictate your worth. It's building a life that has no room for their manipulation. It's choosing peace over chaos, self-worth over guilt, love over obligation. And that's exactly what I did. I didn't burn bridges. I just built new ones, on my terms, leading in a direction they never bothered to follow. I didn't slam the door. I simply stopped leaving it open for people who only walked through when they needed something. I didn't destroy my family. I just stopped letting them destroy me. And that quietly, gently, fiercely was the beginning of a new life. One where I wasn't invisible. One where I existed fully. One where I belonged to myself.